you know, how the summit just seems to be kind of like channeling through, and like the space that you're holding for it feels very much, yeah, it feels very natural to you, and feels very much like it's creating these movements, and that feels really like fulfilling for your soul. Um, what was the question that I asked? I know we were like talking about that, and just, yeah, how it feels really natural to you, and feels very much like, um, yeah, part of what you're really meant to be doing. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So Jessica was tuning in and seeing that this is part of my soul path purpose. And I was explaining to her that around, I guess, mean, I've lost track of time. It would be between a year and 2 years ago, I had a premonition that it was like when, when you have a premonition, how it's like, ah, it's like, ah, all this energy starts moving. And I said to my girlfriend, we were having a cup of tea. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be doing all these interviews, and I'm going to be interviewing all these amazing people. And she says, oh, it sounds like you're going to be doing podcasts. And I was like, what's a podcast? And she explained to me what podcasts were. So all this time I thought, oh, I'm going to be doing podcasts. But then when I found out that podcasts are only audio, I was like a bit deflated. I was like, oh, really? It's not, you don't see people, it's just the audio part. And I didn't really feel totally connected to that. And then I found out about summits, and I was like, huh, that feels more aligned. And so, what I wanted to talk to all of you about, and with Jessica, is that sometimes premonitions and intuitions and stuff aren't always completely clear. And I don't know about you, Jessica, but my experience has been is it's almost like a dream, where you have a dream and it's kind of it's not exactly clear, but then over time it becomes more and more clear. And like with the summit, it was like dominoes just went ding, 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 and then boom, and then I had complete clarity of, oh, it was a premonition several years ago that I was going to be doing this summit. And then because I have that memory, then it's like, oh, okay, this is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. Do you experience that with your visions and premonitions?
Yeah, yeah. Or sometimes when like a new course is channeling through, it's like I get a download that initiates the the vision of it, the idea of it, the concept of it. But yeah, it's like over time, all the other pieces download bit by bit by bit by bit, and I just channel those pieces, yeah, piece by piece, until it all comes together, and it's like, oh, beautiful. Or how when doing readings for people, sometimes you get a vision of a certain thing that, like, to that person, it might not make sense to them at that point in time. But as they kind of go along their journey, they start to realize what that, mentioned vision was. And they start to see how it expands or evolves, or um, really continues to manifest along their path. And yeah, it's not that you always see like the whole bigger picture and exactly how it's all going to happen for that person. You just kind of initiate, or activate the vision of it, even at a point where it makes no sense to them. It might make sense, it might not, but like, even if it doesn't make sense to them, it it evolves, and it comes to light, along the journey. Yeah, yeah. um yeah, so sometimes it's really just like an activation rather than the whole story, or the whole bigger picture. But still just as important.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the conversation that we were having earlier, and wanted to just kind of expand on that and dive a little deeper into it about, the expectations that sometimes well-meaning soul, clients that love us dearly, but still have like that expectation that we will know everything. And I've actually had some clients actually withhold questions and information because they want to find out if I know that stuff already. And I don't know if you experienced that, but it's been kind of interesting, because, and sometimes I'll just say, look, I know I'm a goddess, but I'm not God, and I don't know everything about every single thing about you or your timeline, but I have guidance that comes through. And
Yeah.
what comes through is what you'll need. Like that's the medicine that you get. But I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about how do you manage that? How do you deal with that kind of expectation when it comes up?
Yeah, because it's like if you think about, so if someone does have the expectation that you know everything, if you really think about that concept and you think about how much data is within this universe, like how could one human possibly like hold or know everything? Like your brain would probably overload and fry if you knew everything, yeah, like yeah. If you think about the amount of data that's in the universe, like how could you possibly expect someone to know everything? That's just beyond. And so yeah, like you said, like when you are connecting with someone for a reading, you've also only got an hour or maybe an hour and a half, depending on how long your sessions are. So how could someone possibly um, channel to you every single piece of information that's out there about their soul? Like it's such a infinite resource. Like if you think about your soul and the amount of lifetimes you've had, the amount of experiences, the amount of like soul interactions, the amount of traumas, the amount of accomplishments, if you just like think about the concept of how much information one there is for one soul, how could you possibly channel that all within the space of an hour, right? Like that's just, you'd have to slow down time in order to actually do that. So it's not about knowing everything or being able to tell someone everything. It's just about being the channel or the medium or whatever you want to call it, the conduit for what guidance spirit is wanting to bring through to that person at that point in time in their journey, that has most importance or relevance, regardless of what the human mind thinks is important or relevant. It's more so what is, yeah, most important or relevant for their soul to know. Because, like, say for example, like this human could think like, oh, this thing is the most important relevant thing for me to know right now, but spirit could be looking at it all and being like, like you're gonna work that out so easily, like whatever, we're gonna do you know what I mean? It's like that's already taken care of. You think it's so important right now, you're so hung up on it, but it's fine. We're gonna bring through the pieces of information that are actually important and relevant. Even if you don't get it right now, you'll see how this information is, yeah, and these insights and this guidance is, yeah, more so what your soul was really needing access to. Because yeah, like they just know, they just know what is meant to be bringing through. And um if you also think about if you think about any other form of service, like I don't know, if you just think about like you go to your hairdresser or you hire an electrician or you know some other form of service, like you don't expect them to know every single thing about their industry and their trade, and you don't expect them to be able to do everything just because they work in that line of work or that field. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, they'll have a certain skill set or a certain amount of knowledge or a certain capacity as to what they can offer, but you don't expect people to be like the be all end all of that trade or that industry or that thing. You accept that they're going to be, really skilled or gifted or really good at something within that field that they focus on, right? Like you might have a hairdresser that's like really, really, really good at coloring, and so they focus on, I don't know, like they might be really, really good at blondes and balayage and um, doing that, but they might not be the greatest stylist or at cutting hair, but like they just focus on what they're really good at. You don't expect them to be the expert at every single thing that a hairdresser could ever do. So it's kind of just having that little bit of reality check, like why put so much pressure and expectation on someone who's really just, you know, offering something that they are really good at, but not claiming. We never claim to know everything. We never claim to be able to access every single piece of information that anyone could ever want access to. And also, I think it's important to acknowledge that, like, clairvoyants or psychics or mediums, like, it's not their job to tell you what you want to hear. I think that's another part of it, is like that expectation of you should know everything and you should tell it to me the way I want to hear it. And like you should, and it's not correct, or you haven't got it right if you don't say it or explain it the way that like I would be happy with. That's another kind of facet of the expectation sometimes. um
Yeah, I love that
yeah.
so much. I remember a few years ago, I gave someone a reading, and she, at the end of the reading, she says, well, that's just not that's not true, and I'm not aligned with that, and basically I'm wrong. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that, and it was a bit strange. I don't usually get that kind of reaction, but I just was really kind of cruisy about it. And I was like, that's okay. You can take it or leave it, take what works for you, leave the rest, no big deal. And was it about a month and a half later, she booked back in with me. And I was like, oh, well, it couldn't have been that bad if she's booked back in again. And she came back in and she was so apologetic. She said, you were right. Oh my goodness. That was exactly what I needed to hear. She was just in resistance, and, it was something that was hard for her to hear. And in a way, like she didn't, like, like that wasn't what she wanted to hear, but it was exactly what she needed to hear. So yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's so, so important and so relevant as being a piece. And the other thing is, I was wondering, Jessica, do you think that sometimes it's about the alignment, like the soul contracts and the alignment of different readers, clairvoyants, channels, psychics that have with their soul clients? Because the reason why I'm asking that is I've had some people go, oh my God, this, psychic or this channel is so good, so good. And then another person will go, no, they weren't. And so,
Right.
like maybe there is sometimes an alignment and a connection that some people have with each other that others don't. Like a
Yeah.
massage therapist, where a massage, and they go, oh, she's the best massage therapist ever. And then you go and get a massage and you're like, really?
Yeah. 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 I 100% feel that. To me, I just put it down to being on a similar wavelength or not, because um, it just feels to me as simple as that. Like if you're on a similar wavelength, you'll be able to tune into them so much easier. You'll be able to channel it so much easier, and they'll be able to receive it in a very resonant way. yeah, to me it just feels like if you're calling in, attracting people on a similar wavelength to you, it just seems to flow a lot easier. And then, yeah, every once in a while you get someone who's on a totally different wavelength, and it's like you can already tell before you even start the reading, like, I don't know if this person's really going to like fully receive or even resonate with what's going to come through today. But I kind of just hand it over to spirit and just be like, well, whatever, like, just bring through what you think is best to bring through, and I'm not going to take it personally if this person doesn't resonate, because, you know, what can I do? Like, I've just channeled through exactly what spirit's brought through. Maybe they're just not in this, like with your example, maybe they're just not on a resonant wavelength right now. So they might have a couple of experiences, shift wavelength, listen to the recording, like you said, like a month later, and just be like, oh.
Oh, what she was talking about. Yeah. Yeah.
Or you know, um, and I don't think it's not always necessarily about being like, oh, you know, I'm on a higher wavelength and they were just, you know, in a low vibe. It's just different wavelengths. You know, it's just different. It's not about it was higher or lower. It's just different. And so sometimes, yeah, it is hard to receive from a different wavelength. Or sometimes when you're in a different wavelength, people just communicate and listen differently. Like, it could be a message that actually really does fit with that person, but just the communication um, feels hard for them to listen to. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, like initially they might think like, oh, I would never have said it that way, or I never would have expressed it in that tone, or, you know, but the, yeah, but I feel like the messages are always still at some level like exactly what's needing to be brought through, and that will land at some point. Yeah, because I mean, like, I've had an experience of it myself where I had like multiple healers and intuitives, you know, do healings and readings on me when I was like, yeah, 18, 19. And there's this one thing that they were all saying, and I was thinking like, these people must be in some secret group because they're all saying they're all saying the same thing to me. I just don't get it. Like, I don't understand why every freaking healer and intuitive is like saying this thing to me, because I just couldn't get it. And then it was literally until this last year in 2020 when I reflected on it. I was just like having a bath, and I asked spirit, like, is there anything I need to know? And then they were like, well, you know, that time, like, you know, nearly 10 years ago, that everyone was telling you this. If you look at it in hindsight, now do you get it? And I was like, oh my God. It's like you don't understand like how I could not have gotten that at that point in time in hindsight. But I just wasn't getting it at that time. It just wasn't like, and I think I was just in a space of like denial, just being like, no, that's not, you know, that's for someone else. And just kind of trying to avoid a certain things. So, um, yeah, I try to not take it personally when someone doesn't resonate or land with a certain message, because I've done it before, but it years later made sense.
I
Like,
had one of those recently, like,
yeah,
20 years ago. And it
yeah,
finally just like the penny dropped. And I was like, oh, I was
yeah.
ready before.
And it just kind of emphasizes the fact that like you can, it's, you know, that saying like you can only lead a horse to water. It was like that's all they could do. They could just bring it up for me, but they couldn't. They didn't have the capacity to completely explain it or run me through it or take me. Do you know what I mean? Like, they were just leading the horse to the water, and I was the horse that was not drinking the water. it wasn't their job to force feed me the water. They couldn't figure it all out for me. They just were bringing through what they had the capacity to bring through, and the other part was my job, but I wasn't willing to take it in fully. So yeah.
I do find that sometimes that is part of the dynamic that can happen as, people want to be healed or want to be, have it fixed. And it's like, well, no, I can only guide, and then that person has to take the responsibility of healing
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah. Like people, it's never ever anyone else's responsibility to walk your path. So
Yeah.
I don't understand why you would, other than just pure desperacy, I don't understand why you would think that someone else could fix your life without you being committed to your part of it. I don't, other than someone just being in a really desperate space, I don't understand why people put those type of expectations on healers or intuitives, as if it's like, oh, well, I'm paying you, you fix it. It's
Yeah.
like my
Yeah. Only if it could be that easy, huh? Goodness me. That would just be wonderful. You just go and pay and then get fixed. Yay. But then you would miss out on the whole process and the whole journey. And like what we're
life.
talking about is it's the journey, isn't it? It's the process. It's not the destination.
Yeah, but like the thing is, sometimes it is that easy when it comes to people who actually, book a healing or a reading and show up and actually receive and take it on board and realize this is my responsibility. Now I will go implement it. Now I'll go action it. That's when it is like as easy as that. That's when they can have a quantum leap because they've actually understood the dynamic and the energetics of like, this is what this person brings through, this is what I need to receive and sit with and integrate with, and it's my responsibility to go implement these things. And that's when, yeah, you literally see people take like a quantum leap in their life because they've made it easy. They haven't just sat around going like, oh, well, just someone can come and I'll just keep going to all these different healers and readers until someone fixes me. But anyway, it happens. So,
I watched that with my own sister, when she
mm,
had cancer. I said, this and this and this and this. And she's like, oh, I love that I have a hippie sister, telling me what I need to do to cure my cancer. And I was like, yep, da 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 da, you just do this. And she was like, okay, I'll do that. And then she went and she did. She implemented. I'm not saying it was easy, but
yeah.
she did all the things that she had to do. And, she didn't have to have chemo. The cancer went away. Not completely, it's in remission, but she's doing well. And now she's got twins. She's got two babies. I'm not saying it was an easy
Right.
process, but she just went and she implemented the steps and actioned it. And
Wow.
and yeah, and that was an amazing like quantum jump, quantum
Yeah.
leap.
Yeah.
Now she's
Yeah.
got two beautiful babies and she's so happy and I'm so proud of her, you know?
Yeah.
And I was just the guide. I was just like blah blah blah, and she just went and did it. She's that kind of girl though. She's very like once she knows what to do, she'll just go and do it.
It's like how the masculine is supposed to be. Like the masculine's not supposed to be like trying to figure it all out and actioning it. The masculine is supposed to, receive from the feminine and be like, okay, let me, like, I'll do it. But yeah, we've just been confused for a long time, thinking that the masculine has the role of getting the insight, getting the downloads, getting all the information and the inspiration and the ideas, and actioning everything. Like, and that's why we're exhausted, right? Yeah. Mm.
I know we both got to go, but I have one more thing. I had, this is a long time ago, a friend was really concerned about whether she was going to get married or not. So she kept asking me and I kept saying, no, I can see the wedding. You're getting married. I know you're getting married. I can see it. She's like, really? You can see it? I was like, oh yeah, oh my goodness, it's going to be such a happy day. Oh, honey, you're going to get married and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, I can even see the wedding dress and it looks like this and this. And I was like, it's a lacy butterfly pattern. It's like pink and blue and like pastel colors. And oh, it's so beautiful. And she looked horrified because she's like a white wedding dress girl, you know? She was like, you know, she didn't say, I wouldn't wear a dress like that, but her energy said, I would never wear a dress like that, honey. Like, you got the wrong girl. That's funny. And I was like, I'm telling you, this is just what I see. You know, I see a lacy white, colorful pattern. Anyways, many years go by. It was like, I think 3 years later. And she comes running up, because I don't know her very well. She's just an acquaintance, but she comes running up to me and she says, oh, we got married. You were right. You know, oh, da, da, da. And I was like, oh, I'm so happy for you. She goes, let me show you the photos. And I was like, okay. And she brings out her iPhone and we're going through photos. And there's this one photo that, oh, I just swallowed my cough drop. This is really backstage conversation, isn't it? So this one photo, I don't know why, but I just like, you know, with the iPhones, how you can go like that and go into the photo. And I don't even know why I did it. I just went like that into the photo. And there is the lacy butterfly pastel pattern that I saw. Like, it wasn't her wedding dress. It was actually a moment in time. It was the confetti. It was a beautiful photo. It's like one of those photos that could be on the front cover of a wedding magazine, because everyone was smiling. The kids were laughing. They were kissing. Like, it was the perfect happy wedding shot where everyone was in that moment. And what I saw was the confetti that was being thrown up in the air, and it was the light refraction off of the confetti made a butterfly pattern with the exact colors and everything, like exactly what I saw.
Yeah.
And I could only see it by scanning into it. And I don't even know what made me do that. You know, I guess my intuition, but I went like that. And then there it was. And I was like, oh my God, I saw a moment in time. So I wanted to bring that up because, like, that's sometimes how my intuition works. Is for some reason I'll see things, but I don't know how to explain it. So I thought it was the wedding dress, but clearly it wasn't. She had a beautiful white wedding dress, but it was actually a moment in time that I saw. And that has always kind of like tripped me out, actually. It was like, whoa. And like, why did I see a moment in time? Like, what's that all about? And have you had any experience like that?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of an example similar, like mm, mm, mm. I guess like a way I could yeah, there definitely has been a lot of experiences where like what you see in that moment and what you can contemplate in order to like explain is what you have like the capacity to explain at the time. Like, yeah, how could you have known or explained like, oh, there's this moment in time where confetti creates this, you know, like how could you have done that at the time? So it's like you know, you still got the download and you still got the essence of it. And it still came through, but just in a, you know, a slightly different way that you wouldn't have really been able to explain previously. There's been lots of examples of it. I'm just having a little bit of a mind blank right now on like specifics, but it's been I guess more so like sometimes when I'm tuning into someone and they're asking about like a soulmate or a partner coming in, sometimes the details about this, you know, soulmate or partner that's coming in, like, yeah, sometimes the details won't specifically match the person that ends up coming in, but I've talked to people, you know, afterward, like once they've met their person and they've gotten to know that person, and it's more like I'll ask them, you know, well, even though these certain details don't quite match up, like, do you feel the energy of that detail resonating with that person, in a sense that, like, say for example, I remember, like, I was doing a reading for someone, and I could feel her soulmate coming in, and I just kept getting this feeling that he might, like, work with like logging, or like, somehow yeah, working with wood, or doing really kind of like, because I could see him wearing like really outdoor kind of clothes, as and really masculine in that way and stuff. And she, when we talked about it after she met this guy, she was like, well, he doesn't work in that area, but like, when we had our first few dates and I learned about his hobbies, like, he, in all of his spare time, he's out in the woods, he's out, amongst the trees, he's out wearing these like, flannelette, like very kind of like outdoorsy masculine clothes and stuff. And she was like, it's not necessarily to do with his career the way that you saw it or thought it, but it's very much of who he is as a person and what he spends all his spare time doing. So it's like, it's still like the essence, or it's still connected. It might just not be the same like detail, So there's been lots of experiences of it. That's the only kind of example that's coming to mind at the moment, but it's quite cool to see how, like, okay, like, I could have been hard on myself and said like, oh, I got that wrong because the details aren't specifically matched, but you kind of had that realization of like the essence was there, and like for that person, at least she was looking for someone, or looking to connect with someone who had that kind of like energy about them, regardless of whether it was their career or what they did in their spare time. It was like she kind of knew that that was what she was looking for in his essence, like a really grounded, out in the woods guy. Yeah.
It's kind of like snapshots, isn't it? It's like you get a glimpse of
Mm-hmm.
something energetically, and it's not always exactly clear,
Yeah.
but it is clear in the essence of it. And so I love that at the beginning of our conversation, you said that we can't know everything because we don't have the capacity to know everything, because we would just fry our brains, And it is that kind of thing of like, we see facets, but not the whole thing. And I think maybe part of that is also that there's the, free will and
Mm-hmm.
fate, and that how they interconnect, and how,
Yeah.
like, there's that is in play too. So the whole universe is in motion, and you got the fate and the free will swimming around too. So it can't
Yeah.
be like so specific because of all of that dynamic as well. So
Because say for with that example, it could have been that, because there was time between when I did that reading and when she met that person. It could have literally been that at the time when I did the reading, he might have been contemplating a career like that, but ended up deciding, actually, no, I'm just going to do that in my spare time, and for career, I'm going to pursue this. So that's his free will. But at the time when I was doing the reading, perhaps like because he has such a connection to being in the woods and being in nature and spending lots of times outdoor, it could have been that he was contemplating going this or that way in his career, and that's why I picked it up as career, because it felt quite active at that time. Like, and I'm not just encouraging people to like try and put pieces together. Do you know what I mean? Like sometimes people try too hard to put an explanation or put pieces together when it's not really there. but it's also equally important to understand that there are many different factors with the free will and with fate that we can't always like know. do you know what I mean? I'm just saying, like, by example, it could have been that he was contemplating that as a career at the time, but he chose it to be more of a hobby, for example. Yeah, and it's not about trying to piece it all together, but just having an understanding that, yeah, like there are many things that we don't know about what happened in the line of free will and fate. Yeah, along the way. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And actually, how exciting that we don't know everything, because then that makes it very interesting and exciting, and a journey, into itself. And as you were talking, I realized that the reason why I had that, like seeing the moment in time, because when I went into it, I showed her, I was like, oh my God, I saw a moment in time. Look, there's the pattern that I saw. And she's like, you are so strange. I love you. I'm glad you were right about me getting married, but you are so weird. I could see the look on her face. She didn't say that, but I could see it. It was like, and I was so excited. I was like, oh my God, this picture is like the happiest picture of all the pictures. It's my favorite because it's capturing the happiness and the bliss. I said, you're meant to be married. Oh, I'm so happy for you. And I think, that we don't always know,
Mm-hmm.
like why things are in the timing that they are. And sometimes we might go, what was that about? But actually, it's all in perfect time. Even the stuff that isn't so good or isn't so accurate, it's always in alignment with exactly the way it's meant to be, even when it doesn't seem so. Like me thinking it was the wedding dress, it wasn't. But I did see, and I was able to confirm to her, and it confirmed my own intuition and knowing and seeing and too. So I wanted to leave everybody with that is, try not to control it, because it
Yeah.
can't be controlled. Like,
Yeah. You have to stay in the mystery and accept that it is a mystery a lot of time. But there's a lot of magic within that mystery. Yeah.
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 And I think
Mhm.
that's like the culmination of everything that you were talking about in our interview too. It,
Yeah.
yeah, the divine feminine being that mystery, and that space is where the magic's at.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd way rather be like floating around in that realm than just in something that's predictable and limited. Like I'd way rather feel like I was in a space where like this is mysterious, but there's lots of magic and potentiality than be floating around in a space where it's like I know exactly the limits of what could happen and what's most probably going to happen right now. That's so boring. um, so yeah, I think if you just feel that in your soul, like your soul is excited by that, then it helps you trust it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
So we will leave all of you with that, as in, the message of trusting the magic and the mystery that is within you. And thank you so much, Jessica.
Thank